And try again. Goodbye.
All right, this is the number that was used to call me right now. The caller ID shows Merchant Services. Again, 213-947-0339. These are the tactics of an entity that's keeping you under surveillance. The phone is ringing. Remember, it's audible activity. Audible activity, presence in the path. Light activity creation is coexisting with movement in the path. This is an engineered environment. So they're maintaining activity with simultaneity to what it is that I do. As I just captured video, as I am operating my cell phone, and I'm proceeding to begin uploading. Immediately the phone rings. Merchant Services is who you see. Call it 211. I let it ring. I call it right back. This is the phone number. It's just for purposes of audible activity.
The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again. Goodbye.
Okay, one second. Let me make sure that it is calling indeed the right number. Yeah, have to dial a 9 first. It's federal stalking violation of Title 18 as they use a communication device for purposes of federal.
The number you have dialed is not in service.
Okay. That's audible activity. It's the same corrupt entity that just flew over my office, by the way, in helicopter. That entity is acting in concert with the people of the state. My work office number, this right here, is what is public information, not only because it's a property management company that is engaged in leasing apartments, but because I am at the facilitating venue where the entity is engaged in what is ongoing concerted activity as a demon possessed entity, maintaining the elements of monitoring in real time. Okay, so it is the entity acting directly and vicariously. Using this phone is nothing other than criminal conduct for engagement in the elements of monitoring and federal stalking in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. By the way, you also can reasonably deduce that when you have the documentation of what is stalking in a highly peculiar manner, in conformity to a documented pattern of conduct, not only through what is admission of presence in the path through sirens, which is criminal summoning, and also in helicopters. This is reasonably to be tied to the pattern of conduct. I'm just letting you know, not only do I have the evidence substantiating what the criminal system is and the condition of those that are engaging in it, I'm also pointing to the fact that when you are looking at the criminal conduct of a corrupt government, the environment and the peculiar behavior in that environment, it's reasonable to make that connection in and of itself. I just want to point that out. The entity that's stalking, a police enforcement agency that's stalking, and you're stalking in helicopters. You're flying over my apartment. You're flying over my head. You're flying around my apartment and around my office. You're not making it any less specific when I'm also showing you the specific environment. And there's an ongoing pattern of the entity engaging in what is that nuisance, and that's a terrorizing occurrence. Flying over, what are you flying over my head for? And doing so at all hours of the day and night. And that's combined with the terrorizing environment, which is where the entity is monitoring. The entity is doing so, again, with regard to what the ordinary target individual is doing while you engage in something that the entity doesn't like. Say, for example, if you utter the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, if you are engaged in prayer, the entity will arrive in a helicopter flying over your apartment and your apartment begins to rumble. That's terrorism, and that is stalking on its face. That is targeting. Okay, so the entity is engaging in both criminal conduct that's supposed to be so broad that you cannot reasonably identify the fact that you are the one that's being followed by a helicopter. The entity and the people of the state are engaging in what is criminal defamation and that which is relevant to psychological torture, while they like to suggest that you are paranoid because you're witnessing this conduct, you're subject to this conduct in the helicopter. In addition to that, the entity engages in what is criminal conduct that it anticipates will never be proven. This is what the P.O.C. provides. The entity is indeed targeting, and that targeting is represented through literally flying over my apartment, flying over my head, but also that targeting conduct is relevant and identifiable through what the target individual is doing in that specific environment as well. So as you hear the name of the Lord Jesus, Satan hates that. Okay, Satan trembles at the name. All right, and what Satan does, what the demon possessed do when they're fearful, when they're scared, they engage in what is criminal conduct. They engage in what is terrorism. That is the psychopath, and that's exactly what the entity, and that's how you're looking at targeting on its face, by the way. And where you are in that environment, when you're engaged in that documented criminal conduct, what's occurring in the workforce, in the workplace, in the specific environment, period, this is a reasonable connection of facts. This is an ongoing pattern of using the phone in my office with regard to what it is that I'm doing. And so this is where you're understanding how you're recognizing a pattern, by the way. It's nothing other than audible activity of a phone versus just another method, audible activity as helicopters. But it's all centered on what I do as I do it. It's all occurring in the specific environment. It's all occurring while a light source is documented remaining over my head. Oh, this is how you're identifying a pattern. Okay, so the demons are just alternating between a phone ringing or versus a helicopter sounding. All right, and this is how you're getting to what is an ongoing pattern of conduct by an entity. Okay, the people of the state don't have access to a helicopter to engage in audible activity. That's what the corrupt law enforcement agencies are for. All right, it is currently, currently 2:18 p.m. That is the entity engaged in what is amplification of helicopter activity flying in relevant position to my office in the specific environment where there would never be any sun, as I'm showing the light sources remaining over the Upland Public Library. And the entity is right now sounding helicopter activity. So let's go get that too. The people of the state are being simultaneously prosecuted. P.O.C. All right, that's called crossing a path. And the entity is again targeting while you're looking at demons flying in circles. This is called demonic pacing. This is what they do. And they also engage in what you see is flying in a circle and when they're at a greater distance, and then they're still targeting with the audible activity inside of my office. This is the foolishness of psychopaths that are waiting to be fired, such as Dominic Choi and the men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department. This is letting, again, psychopaths, letting them let loose while they have access to helicopters. And this is also why you're talking about the demilitarization of corrupt law enforcement agencies who you see in possession of armored vehicles, by the way, who are engaged in what is terrorism, because that's exactly what the Anaheim Police Department and what the Corona Police Department are also engaged in. Stalking in plain sight, and then they're engaged in what is federal stalking and on the venue. And while they are that corruption is exposed on its face, they engage in more of that criminal conduct, and it's to the demise of the people of the state. All 59 units that live here are going to federal prison. The entity this is the same department that flew for 47 minutes in alignment to my window, my living room window, while you're looking at engineered light that coats the hillside. That is evidence while they're flying over my head, while they're monitoring the documentation in service to Satan, who cannot help them and is not going to save their jobs, not going to save their reputation, and is not going to save them from that federal prosecution and time in federal prison, okay? Because the one who's flying that helicopter is going to federal prison, and the federal government's not going to have a hard time figuring out who that is. It's not the target individual's responsibility, and it's not going to remain a mystery either. This is P.O.C. That's the criminal conduct of a demon-possessed agency that's incriminating its criminal co-conspirator, by the way, because they're all group stalking together. They're all hostile together. They're all monitoring together, and they're all engaged in what is that ongoing system of surveillance that's occurring inside of the workplace as well. So I want to show you what is ongoing pacing in a helicopter and an airplane. This is P.O.C. This is pacing. This is the same specific environment utilizing planes and helicopters. And that is, I want to be clear, what is exposing public corruption. Okay, and it has nothing to do with an airport being in the city. As you see, the light source is over me, directly over my head, while I'm on public transportation going past the Ontario airport. There's no sun that's ever going to be over the Ontario airport while I remain at the property of Alvarado Gardens all day long. And that doesn't change because these demons are pacing in the engineered environment with knowledge of the fact that I've exposed their demon possession by virtue of their presence in that demonic environment where there would never be a sun rising and setting at the same address. All right, so you're not going to forget the fact that the light source is over the Ontario airport, not just over the Ontario airport, but over my head at the Ontario airport while I'm on public transportation. And that is captured at all times of day, no matter what direction I'm going on third-party group stalker Omnitrans. And then you're going to take a second look at what the LAPD and the state just provided. Ongoing evidence of what is terrorism using planes and helicopters. And the plane was the use of the alternative because the demon-possessed agency, the LAPD, they don't want to provide another video of flying directly over my head because they're using more than one helicopter and they're engaged in criminal conduct together. They just alternated between different aircrafts, and they're showing that ongoing obsessive endeavor to continue to engage in surveillance, to continue to engage in what is terrorism. All right, the helicopter versus the airplane is just a different method. It's the telephone ring versus the helicopter activity. Different method, same criminal system, same obsession, demon possession also. Okay, it is currently, again, while the people of the state are being prosecuted through the state's criminal activity, it's 2:22 p.m. That's a good time. P.O.C.